My name is Kamran Özlem, and I'm a student at the Department of Cognitive Science. I'm honored to present you today Professor Dr. Seyhun Topbaş. She's the founder of DILCOM, Department of Speech and Language Therapy, at the Faculty of Sciences at Anadolu University in Eskişehir, where she worked over 30 years. And she's currently founding SLT, Speech and Language Therapy Department in Istanbul Medipol University. She is best known for her work in phonology, dysphagia, psycholinguistics, speech and language pathology, communication disorders, and specific language impairment. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
To this symposium. I think you will find it different than the other talks. Mine is more about impairment in Turkish children especially. So I hope you'll find it interesting. Okay. So, my talk will be about language repetition performance. And just, if I can answer the question, yet I don't know if I can, but just will try. So my outline will be just a little bit on SLI, what language impairment is. Very briefly, of course. It may take days and days of debate. What does non-word repetition test measures in general, and the development of the non-word repetition task in Turkish, and some results of the studies relating it to the memory skills of children. So language impairment, we are talking about impaired of some language in the brains of those children, which means that, you know, it's a failure to acquire the age-appropriate language skills despite normal general intelligence. Also we think that there should be an adequate exposure to language. They must have normal hearing and also neurological status. So this is how SLI children is described in the literature. And there's also a great debate about how should it be called, whether they should leave out the specific part of it. And in fact, in the last DSM-5, you know, you can see that it's called only language impaired children, and without, they have all excluded the intelligence and the IQ criterion, IQ as a criterion for the measurement. So we, in general, all the children who are delayed in language and have some deficits in language skills are called language impaired. As has been said, they should have normal hearing and normal neurological status. Why do we care? Well, I can say that I'm a linguistically background speech and language therapist, where I have been trained in England and come back to found the profession in Turkey. We are always, you know, try to describe what linguistic skills do these children have in Turkish, and why do we care? We care because they need to be, how we say, they need therapy to be well prepared to school for, and also to have their life appropriately in all their lives. It's a very, how can I say, it's a very crazy, let me say, type of deficit that we observe in these children. The thing is that assessment is difficult in SLI in Turkey, we say, because the physicians, let me say the doctors, do not recognize this language impairment as an impairment, and they don't diagnose, therefore they don't diagnose it. So we have a great problem, and for the clinical judgments, we have to do some standardized, of course, psychometric measurements, but other than that, we have to have, and we have to describe in detail the areas of language impairment in these children, both to put good diagnosis, a well diagnosis, and also to give some therapy to those children. So we have developed a non-word repetition task in Turkish. Why this task? Because in which children are asked to repeat some non-words. It's a simple and practical tool used frequently to measure phonological short-term memory, which is one of those parts that are impaired supposed to be impaired in language impaired children, and to discriminate these children from their typically developing peers. It has also been assured that this is non-word repetition tests or tasks are free of cultural bias in identifying the impairment. And over the past 2 decades, there is enormous research in this area that shows that non-word repetition is a viable clinical marker of SLI in these children. So what do this task measures? In general, we can say that repeating nonsense stimuli requires individuals to perceive the sequence of sounds appropriately and store them in their temporarily in their storage, and then reconstruct the phonological representation of the sequence and to produce it. So it's not an easy task to do. Therefore, we can say that it requires accurate phonemic perception of the stimulus. In order to, to do that, they must hear the sounds exactly and appropriately. So they have to segment the input signal, they have to match the signal with the phonological representation in long-term memory, and then maintain them activated, as well as their sequential order, and then planning for speech motor programs. So it's really a complex task. And all the children in the literature and in almost cross-linguistic studies done in European languages, in many European languages, it has been shown that these children have difficulty in repeating non-words due to these limited phonological processing, storage abilities, and some traces of working memory. Also, it has been said that this deficit in the SLI children is proposed to be a very robust thing, as it is observed from preschool years to adulthood. So I think from these difficulties, we can see that it's an intensive and complex disorder. And the task also is complex. That's why children are always failing in this task. So non-word repetition was first assumed to provide a pure measure of phonological short-term memory, but later on many studies also have demonstrated that the significant association between linguistic knowledge with the non-word repetition performance. Among these, difficulties in processing the acquiring language is shown to be one factor, but the linguistic complexity, what do we mean by linguistic complexity is also very, very important, I think. So there are some ideas or research and some hypotheses put forward by a lot of researchers in this area who are working on SLI especially, that the performance on non-word repetition are influenced by a number of factors, like, such as vocabulary, such as or the vocabulary size of the children, or the similarity of the non-words to the target language, whether they are similar or non-similar, how much they are alike, at least, and the length of the utterances, the non-words I mean, and also the articulatory complexity of the non-words. So these factors are very important skills for the non-word repetition tasks. And as you can see, apart from the articulatory complexity, we can say that all of their variables are at least important for the linguistics, the language, I mean. So some studies have indicated a relationship between the vocabulary size and the lexical knowledge and the performance on non-word repetition tests. And in these studies, SLI children who have smaller lexicons as well as impaired language abilities would like to have difficulty, of course. And also, when the lexical knowledge or vocabulary size is considered, we can say that the word likeness, which I meant a minute ago, the similarity of the non-words to the target language is also an important factor. So, if so, it is always, again, found that in the literature, typically developing children who can make use of their knowledge are also at an advantage in this way. This means that SLI children will be worse again. So many findings also suggest that the length of the non-words also increases. The number of correct repetition by children identified as both typically developing and SLI may decrease because of and regardless of age, we say. So it's important that the length of the words of non-words shouldn't be much longer. So I think at least some of these factors were important for Turkish language, because if whether the language has an effect or not can be at least investigated. In Turkish, we thought about like word likeness and the length of some of the words may have some different conclusions for typologically different languages. So in sum, we can just summarize that there are many variables. There may be also many other variables, but the important ones are, for non-word skills, we need an auditory processing, which can be related with hearing, normal hearing. There shouldn't be any hearing loss. A normal perception, auditory perception, I mean, and this goes down to phonological analysis. They should have these skills as well, which may be a variable about phonotactic frequency and the language dominance of the kids as a variable. And the phonological storage, which may be affected by stimulus length and the familiarity of words. And also speech motor planning and the output, which might be affected by a variable like articulatory complex. And all these can be also have a developmental trajectory. We have to find out that as well, whether as the children get older, whether this increases, whether they will repeat well or not. And also there are individual differences. We have to take that into account as well. So in my talk, I will generally, very briefly, go on about how we develop this task, and at least I will give you some results. The task which we have developed with my one of the students' thesis, then we have revised the test for the post action to be also used for bilingual children who live in European Union countries. You know about the Turkish characteristics, so I won't be going on to mention about this, but when we were selecting the words, we have chosen a very large database, about 45,000 words based on the written text, and this was done by a student in computer engineering at Anadolu University, who has developed a computation algorithmic program to find out the possibility of combinative words, and taking into account the phonotactic probability of Turkish, the phonological complexity, and to some extent the vowel harmony, and leaving the length among 1 to 5 syllables, trying to find out some word likeness effects to give, and then the frequency of the syllable structures. So they have found out, by this program, that in Turkish the most frequent syllable structures were word initial positions, in word begin positions and word final positions, and they have extracted which orders can be, how can we form some non-words by these forms, and they have tried to find out each syllable how it is ordered from most frequent to the least frequent, and then ranking them by the computational algorithmic program. Then we have set some criteria to how to design those words. Like, for example, all numbers should begin with an and with a consonant according to the syllable structure and the frequent and the least syllable structure paradigm. And then the last consonant cannot be a voice stop, for example, or an affricate, for example, due to the final devoicing rules. And each phoneme should occur in only one within a word. And non-words should conform to Bachman's harmony, etc. A lot of criteria, let me say that, like that. Then we have found some syllable structures like those. And the words that are found by the computer program, some of them should be language-like, some of them should be language-unlike, and then we have included some morphemes to those language-like words to make that they are more language-like, and and then see what the results will be. Accordingly, we had a total of 118 387 non-words, and then these were reduced to 600 and 300 again by computation. And then from the Department of Computational Engineering as well, 30 engineering students were given those lists, the 300 list of non-words, and they were asked to rate each of them very Turkish-like and Turkish-unlike, etc. And then we had at last 56 non-words. These were randomized and then read by a female graduate student and recorded with in 3.5 seconds between non-words, giving a pause between non-words. Then we presented this as a pilot study to 46 typically developing and 8 SLI children, where we have transcribed all those responses and find out that the internal consistency was very high. But then after this study, we have reduced the problematic ones, and then we have found, we tried to have a 30 word task, and it was like this. And then we have given a maze, we have done a maze study to see the word effect, the developmental age, word length, and compare the scores with the standardized test which we have done in Turkish as well before the study. So there were 150 typically developing Turkish children and 20 SLI children. And two of our students have done them as a thesis, master thesis. Then we can say that from this preliminary, I don't know if we can accept it as a preliminary, but we revised it again. So word type and syllable length discriminated the children's repetition. That was one of the many main results of the study. And we have found that also 4 and 5 syllable language-like and language-unlike non-words, we had significant differences again. So, but in terms of when we look at the details, we can see that the language-like 3 syllable non-words were better than 4 and 5 syllable non-words. And also, this was for typically for SLI children especially. And for language-unlike words, 4 syllable non-words were better in discriminating all the groups. So we have chosen in the revision part, for example, the 4 syllable ones to be more discriminative than the other ones. And also, as age increases, the number of the correct repetition increased. This was a good developmental finding as well. And then later we have done some sensitivity and specificity studies and the clinical predictivity of the task, whether it is good or not. We have very good results among, at least we can see that the task can discriminate between typically developing children and the SLI children. Afterwards, when we have these good results, then within the course action, just to get balanced with the other tasks done in the during the course action, because this was done among 23 languages. It was a European action to develop multilingual assessment tests for not only monolingual language impaired children, but bilingual language impaired children to entangle the bilingual SLI and normal SLI children. So we have made a short version of the test, and again with a lot of these computation things, we have just shortened it for 16 words, I think. And then we have digitized the test. A female student which read all those in television students, a lot of, how can I say, acoustically good rooms, let me say like that, I forgot the term right now. And then we had an animation and administration for children to repeat non-words, because otherwise it was so boring to repeat those words. And also they said that they can mimic the person if they see when repeating the person who becomes the model. So during the action we decided to make some animations and present the stimulus from the computer. Therefore, we have just developed a parrot animation. So I will just show you very briefly how this plays, but I think just very few. So a parrot comes. I'm hearing it, so okay, all right. So a parrot just, comes, says, greets the child.
Cerit,
Yeah, when you click.
Kölin, Diselük, Konamış.
And of course there's a pause, but I'm just clicking on very quickly. And then at the end, I think, yes, he greets and
Gakosıl,
goes back.
Petülis,
Something.
Tedigölük, Sögünüden, Yoşagımut.
Something like that, okay? So children liked it very much. And it's not boring anymore. And they cannot mimic you, so the parrot is always the same. And also the tone and the presentation of the stimulus was also very more robust. So after this, and here are the words. Yes. And then we also again piloted it with 43 children, this time with 15 monolingual typically developing, 13 monolingual SLI and 15 bilingual Turkish-German children. And now at the moment there's a study which is in progress, about 100 and again more typically developing children, and about 20 monolingual SLI, 20 bilingual Turkish-German, and 20 bilingual Turkish-English speaking children within those countries where again trying to see whether the task is a good discriminator. So, and we had very good results, where we have done also a ROC analysis to see the sensitivity and specificity and predictivity of the test, and it was also very high again, and we can say easily that this test, the task at least, is discriminating these children. And also what we can say about, to conclude about the working memory skills, let me say that, I think we have a consideration that the repetition accuracy performance of all groups decreases as the syllable length of the non-words increased. So this means that long words have an effect in short-term memory, the storage of the children. Therefore, if the word gets longer and longer, the short-term memory cannot keep it, at least for SLI, not for typically developed children, I'm sorry. And word likeness also has an effect on the performance of children in all three groups. So the way in which the performance of all children are scored also has an effect, although SLI children, you know, have shown more higher repetition accuracy on language unlike non-words. So this should be a little bit more, I think, interesting result, which we have to get further on and see whether we have the same results with the progress in study right now. And the study also showed that the performance of these children was not sensitive to gender and non-verbal IQ in the group of children with SLI, where we have just, you know, taken a lot of results about this. So taken together, I think we have the same results. At least our results support the literature in some way in detecting in assessing SLI children. So we should go on at least with these studies to see, to give a good diagnosis. And I have to thank to all my colleagues, former colleagues at DILCO. I will have the new ones, I think, at the Metropole University from now on. And I also thank TÜBİTAK and Post Action who have funded these research. A lot of research we have done. You know, we are also going on with the sentence repetition task formed in this way, and perhaps sometime next time we can share the results of that test as well. Thank you very much.
Time for questions.
Thank you very much for this talk.
Yes.
You mentioned it only briefly, that you included bilingual children also, German, Turkish and English, Turkish speaking children. For what purpose did you do this and how did they perform?
Yeah, for the purpose was, you know, as I told you, we were involved in the cost action and the tests were, you know, developed in almost 23 languages. So everybody is, you know, trying to, every language or in every country, we have to try and compare our results to see whether the bilingual children, you know, bilingual children who are at least have low language skills in their second language are, you know, labeled as language disordered. And we try to develop assessment tests that if children are language impaired in their second language, they should be impaired in their first language as well. So SLI does not come only in one of those languages. SLI is something which have a neurological background, you know, but this was not, you know, organically, you cannot have a diagnosis, a brief net diagnosis, let me say like that. So we have to disentangle at least the bilingual SLIs from the not typically developing children. That's why we have given these tasks to bilingual children whose first language is Turkish, but second is different, and to see whether this task is discriminating them or not. That was why. And I have the results of the bilingual children here. I think I just skipped it very quickly. Here. So most of them were bilingual, typically developing children. But from the standardized test, 6 of the children, I think it was 6, I'm not sure, but 6 of the children were, we suspected that they may have a language impairment, but was not sure. So we just make an analysis, different types of analysis, both with covering them as typical and then taking the 6 children out of the study and see whether the results. And I think you can see the test, at least, you know, disentangles or discriminates the typically developing children and SLI children, and also the bilingual children, typically developing bilingual children, did very well also, just as the Turkish monolingual children. But some of the children who are suspected as SLI did the same as our SLI children, monolingual SLIs. So we have to see the results with, of course, larger groups to come to a point at least. Thank you.
Thanks very much for this talk. I'm not familiar with SLI. Can you hear me well? Are you?
Yes,
Can you hear me? Okay, I'm not familiar with SLI very much. So I wondered, what is the earliest age that this impairment can be diagnosed in monolinguals, possibly? Because in your slides I have seen, 4 years and 6 years. So I wondered, what is the earliest age?
The earliest age is actually 4 or 5. However, we try to diagnose them around 3.5 or 3. At least not with SLI, but with language delay. Because children who have language delay at 2 years, 30% of these children have persistent language disorders, language impairments. And among this, somehow 7% of the 30% of children has severe language impairments, which persists at the school age, and then to adolescence. And some, even though you cannot imagine if you know language impairment, what it is, you can see, you can understand it easily, like us. You can see it with the adults, who you don't understand their language. You cannot understand, but they're typically normal, it seems, So, and there are a lot of hypotheses about, and the causes why this is. The literature is debating on these. Some say processing disorders. Some say there are phonological processing deficits. Some say, this is memory skills. And there is a great debate right now on the procedural and declarative memory effects and the working memory effects on these effects that these children might have. But, there is no evidence right now. So we are relying on those research about the conclusion.
Thank you.
Okay.
I had 2 questions, but you answered the second one.
Where?
So I've just got one question then.
Yes, okay, thank you.
So I was surprised at the end there weren't any gender effects. I was wondering why did you use a woman's voice for recording? And did the female children and the male, did you try other voices or a child reading it? I'm just wondering about, did you experiment or have people experimented with the way the voice is produced?
Thank you.
Was there any effects there?
Good, yeah. Good question. Thank you very much. Well, this has another kind of animation has been done before in the literature, and this has been published elsewhere by Shula, Chia, and Roy. They have a test, like animated and digitized, and they have used different kind of voices, and they haven't found any difference effect, but just found that woman voice, like mom's voice, has a more, I don't know how to say it, is better, gives better results for the children. So that's why they have chosen that, and during the coast action, this was a great discussion, and we decided, all of us have decided to use a female voice. That's it. Have I answered all your questions? That's it. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I guess we'll come to the close. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.